Marcus Chin pulled his worn jacket tighter as another blast of icy wind cut through the settlement's outer perimeter. The twin moons of Kepler, 442b, cast an eerie blue glow across the frozen landscape, making the snow sparkle like broken glass. He'd been on night watch for 3 hours now, and his cybernetic leg was starting to ache in the cold. The prosthetic never worked quite right in extreme temperatures, a constant reminder of his last tour with the Terran Defense Corps. The mining colony of New Aberdeen was barely holding on. 6 months ago, they'd lost contact with Earth Command. Supply ships stopped coming. The geothermal generators were failing one by one, and food stores were running dangerously low. Marcus had volunteered for the watch rotation not because he enjoyed freezing his ass off, but because someone had to do it. At 42, he was one of the few colonists with actual military experience, and the younger folks looked to him for guidance whether he wanted it or not. A movement in the tree caught his attention. Marcus raised his plasma rifle, squinting through the scope's thermal imaging. The readings were confusing. Multiple heat signatures, but they were moving wrong. Too fluid, too coordinated. His finger found the trigger as 3 shapes emerged from the forest. They weren't human. The creatures stood roughly 7 feet tall, covered in thick fur that shifted from deep blue to silver in the moonlight. Their bodies were lean and powerful, built like wolves but walking upright on 2 legs. Elongated snouts filled with sharp teeth, pointed ears that swiveled constantly, and eyes that glowed with an inner light. But what stopped Marcus from firing wasn't their appearance. It was the way they moved. They weren't attacking. They were limping. The lead creature stumbled, caught itself, then raised one clawed hand in what could only be described as a peaceful gesture. Behind it, a smaller figure collapsed entirely. The third one, barely more than a pup by the looks of it, was shivering violently despite its thick coat. Marcus kept his weapon trained on them, but activated his comm unit. Control, this is Perimeter 7. We have contact with unknown life forms. 3 individuals appear to be injured. Requesting backup. Static answered him. The storm was interfering with communications again. The lead alien took another careful step forward, then stopped. It said something in a language that sounded like a mixture of growls and musical tones. When Marcus didn't respond, the creature tried again, this time holding up both hands and pointing to the smaller figures behind it. Understanding hit Marcus like a punch to the gut. They weren't just injured. They were dying. The smaller one on the ground wasn't moving anymore. Its breathing came in short, desperate gasps that created small clouds in the frigid air. The pup was barely standing, swaying on its feet. And the leader, despite trying to appear strong, had a dark stain spreading across its left side where something had torn through its fur. Marcus had seen enough wounded soldiers to recognize mortal injuries when he saw them. The smart thing to do was wait for backup. Protocol demanded he maintain his position and monitor the situation. These were unknown aliens on a human colony world. They could be dangerous. They could be carrying diseases. They could be scouts for a larger invasion force. But the pup collapsed. The tiny alien hit the snow and didn't get back up. The leader let out a sound that transcended language barriers, a parent's cry of anguish. It dropped to its knees beside the pup, pressing its snout against the small figure's chest. Marcus lowered his rifle. "Ah, hell," he muttered, then called out to the creatures. "Hey, can you understand me?" The leader's head snapped up. Those glowing eyes locked onto his, and Marcus saw intelligence there. More than intelligence. He saw desperation, hope, and something that looked remarkably like recognition. The alien pointed to the unconscious figure, then to the pup, then made a gesture toward the colony buildings. It was begging. Marcus looked back toward New Aberdeen. The settlement was struggling enough without taking in alien refugees. Resources were tight, medical supplies were limited, and morale was already hanging by a thread. Bringing unknown aliens into their midst could cause panic. It could destabilize their fragile society. But leaving them to die in the snow wasn't an option either. Control, Perimeter 7. I'm going to need a medical team at the main gate. Emergency situation. He tried the comm again, but only static answered. The storm was getting worse. Marcus slung his rifle over his shoulder and pulled out a flare. The red light painted the snow crimson as he ignited it, then tossed it toward the aliens. The leader flinched, but didn't retreat. Marcus pointed toward the colony, then to himself, then made a carrying gesture. The message was clear: follow me. The alien leader nodded with an almost human-like gesture, then carefully lifted the unconscious figure. Marcus moved toward the pup, but the leader growled softly and shook its head. Instead, it somehow managed to support both the injured alien and the pup, refusing help from the strange human. Pride. Even dying, they had their pride. Marcus led them toward the main gate, his mind racing. How was he going to explain this to Director Walsh? The colony administrator was practical to a fault and wouldn't appreciate Marcus making first contact decisions without authorization. But people were dying out here. Human or alien, that had to count for something. The gate guard saw them coming and immediately raised their weapons. Marcus held up his free hand, the other keeping the flare high. Stand down. Medical emergency. Marcus, what the hell are you doing? Sergeant Torres emerged from the guard post, her face a mixture of confusion and alarm. Those are aliens, yes. And they're dying. Marcus reached the gate controls. I'm bringing them in. You don't have authority to make that call. Then, court-martial me later. Right now, open the damn gate. Torres hesitated, then looked at the alien family. The pup was barely breathing, and the unconscious figure had gone completely limp. Even she could see they weren't a threat. Dr. Reeves is going to have a fit. Let me worry about Reeves. Just get me a medical team. The gate slid open with a mechanical whine. Marcus led the aliens through, feeling the weight of the moment. This was first contact. This would change everything. But, right now, all he cared about was getting them somewhere warm. The colony's medical center was a converted storage building that barely qualified as a clinic. Dr. Sarah Reeves was the only trained physician on New Aberdeen, a former military medic who'd come to the colony seeking peace and quiet. She was going to get anything but that tonight. Marcus burst through the medical center doors without knocking. Doc, I need you. Reeves looked up from her late-night inventory, saw the aliens, and dropped her tablet. Their biology is similar enough to ours that basic trauma care should work. She looked at the alien leader, who was watching every move with intense focus. The question is, do they trust us enough to let us try? As if understanding her words, the alien leader stepped back from the tables and gestured for Reeves to continue. It spoke in its musical language, and though the humans couldn't understand the words, the meaning was clear. Please help them. Over the next hour, Reeves worked like she was back in a field hospital. She stabilized the unconscious alien, a female, she determined, and slowly brought the pup's body temperature back to normal. The alien leader, who she decided was probably the male and father of the group, refused treatment for his own wounds until the others were stable. Marcus watched from the corner, marveling at the scene. Here were beings from another world, possibly another star system, and they bled red blood just like humans. They felt pain, showed love, experienced fear. The father's devotion to his family was unmistakable. They're going to make it, Reeves announced finally. The female has some internal bleeding I managed to stop, and the pup was dangerously close to organ failure from the cold. But they're stable now. The alien father sagged with relief, and for a moment Marcus thought he might collapse. Instead, the creature straightened and approached Marcus directly. It placed one clawed hand over its heart, then extended it toward Marcus in what was clearly a gesture of gratitude. Marcus nodded and repeated the gesture. The alien's eyes widened with what might have been surprise. Then, it made a sound that could have been laughter. I think you just made a friend, Reeves observed. The medical center door burst open, and Director Walsh stormed in with 2 security officers. The colony administrator was red-faced and furious. Sergeant Chun, what is the meaning of this? I've got reports of unauthorized aliens in our medical facility. Director, they were dying. You couldn't just follow protocol? You couldn't wait for proper authorization. Walsh gestured at the aliens. Do you have any idea what you've done? These creatures could be carrying pathogens. They could be hostile. They could be anything. The alien father stepped between Walsh and the medical tables where his family lay recovering. He didn't make any threatening moves, but his message was clear: you'll have to go through me. They're protecting their own, Marcus said quietly. Just like we would. That doesn't matter. Procedure exists for a reason, Chun. We can't just. Director. Dr. Reeves' voice cut through the argument. I need to show you something. She led them to her computer terminal, where she'd been analyzing blood samples. The screen showed a complex molecular structure that made Walsh's eyes widen. Their blood contains compounds I've never seen before. But, more importantly, it contains antibodies for diseases that have been wiping out our livestock. Diseases we haven't been able to cure. What are you saying? I'm saying these aliens might not be the problem, Director. They might be the solution. Walsh stared at the data, his anger slowly replaced by something else. Calculation. Hope, maybe. The alien father watched this exchange with obvious intelligence. When Walsh looked at him, the creature pointed to himself, then to the colony buildings visible through the window. It held up its clawed hands, showing them to be empty of weapons, then made a working gesture. I think he's offering to help, Marcus said. In exchange for what? Sanctuary. Marcus looked at the alien family, the father standing guard, the mother breathing steadily in her sleep, the pup beginning to stir. They'd come out of a frozen wilderness, injured and desperate, and thrown themselves on the mercy of complete strangers. Maybe they're refugees, Director. Maybe something drove them from their homes, just like it drove us from Earth when the resource war started. Walsh was quiet for a long moment, weighing options. The colony was failing. They needed help from somewhere, and it wasn't coming from Earth. Maybe it was time to consider other options. Doctor, how long before they're mobile? A few days for the female. The pup could be up and around tomorrow. And you're certain they're not carrying anything dangerous? Their immune systems are actually more advanced than ours. If anything, we're more likely to give them something than the other way around. Walsh nodded slowly. Sergeant Torres is setting up a quarantine area in Building 7. They can recover there while we figure this out. It wasn't a warm welcome, but it was something. Marcus felt tension ease from his shoulders that he hadn't realized was there. The alien father seemed to understand the decision. He approached Director Walsh and repeated the same gesture he'd given Marcus, hand over heart, then extended forward. Walsh hesitated, then awkwardly returned it. As dawn broke over New Aberdeen, Marcus stood watch over the medical center while their new guests rested. The storm had passed, leaving the world crystal clear and blindingly white. In the distance, smoke rose from the colony's chimneys as people began their daily routines, unaware that everything had changed. The pup was the first to wake up. Its large eyes opened slowly, taking in the unfamiliar surroundings with curiosity rather than fear. When it saw Marcus, it tilted its head in a gesture so perfectly dog-like that Marcus couldn't help but smile. "Hey there, little one," he said softly. The pup made a soft chirping sound and tried to sit up. Marcus moved closer, ready to help, but the young alien managed on its own. It looked around the room, spotted its parents, then looked back at Marcus with what could only be described as gratitude. "You're welcome, kid." The father stirred at the sound of voices. Those glowing eyes opened and immediately scanned the room for threats before settling on Marcus and the pup. Seeing his child awake and alert, the alien's whole body relaxed. Dr. Reeves entered with a tray of food, standard colony rations that she hoped might be digestible by their guests. The alien father sniffed cautiously at the offering, then took a small bite. His expression was unreadable, but he ate a bit more and gestured his thanks. "The blood work is fascinating," Reeves told Marcus quietly. "Their cellular structure is incredibly efficient. They process nutrients differently than we do, but they can definitely survive on our food supplies." "That's good news. How's the mother?" "Stable. She should be conscious soon." Reeves checked her scanner readings. "Marcus, I've been thinking about what you said. About them being refugees. Yeah. Their injuries weren't from the cold. They're older. Plasma burns, projectile wounds. Someone was shooting at them before they reached our colony." Marcus felt ice in his stomach that had nothing to do with the weather. "You're saying they were running from something." "I'm saying something was hunting them." Outside the medical center, the day proceeded normally. Colonists went about their routines, unaware that 3 alien refugees were recovering in their midst. The mining crews headed out to the extraction sites. The agricultural teams tended their struggling greenhouse crops. Children attended their lessons in the community hall. But Marcus knew their peaceful isolation was ending. The universe had just become a much larger and more dangerous place. The mother alien woke up that afternoon, disoriented and afraid until she saw her family safe nearby. The reunion was touching, alien or not. A mother's love was universal. She examined her pup thoroughly, then approached Marcus and Dr. Reeves with obvious gratitude. Like her mate, she gestured her thanks with the hand-to-heart motion. But then, she did something unexpected. She pulled a small object from somewhere in her thick fur and offered it to Marcus. It was a piece of crystalline material, about the size of his thumb, that seemed to glow with its own internal light. The faceted surface caught and reflected the medical center's lighting in impossible ways. "What is it?" Reeves asked. The alien mother spoke in her musical language, pointing to the crystal, then to Marcus, then making a sweeping gesture that encompassed the entire colony. "I think she's trying to tell us something important," Marcus said, accepting the crystal. The moment it touched his skin, he felt a strange tingling sensation, and the crystal's glow intensified. The father alien saw this and became very excited. He spoke rapidly to his mate, who nodded and turned back to Marcus. She pointed to the crystal again, then to the ground beneath their feet. "Doctor," Marcus said slowly, "I think she's trying to tell us that this stuff is here, on our world." Reeves ran her scanner over the crystal and nearly dropped the device when she saw the readings. "Marcus, if this is what I think it is, if there's more of this material on Kepler 442b. What is it?" "It's an energy source. A completely clean, incredibly efficient energy source. This little piece could power our entire colony for months." Marcus stared at the crystal in his palm. The alien family had just handed him the solution to all of their problems. But if they were refugees, if someone had been hunting them, then that someone might come looking. And New Aberdeen was about to find itself caught in the middle of something much bigger than a simple first contact scenario. The implications hit him like a physical blow. These aliens weren't just seeking shelter. They were offering partnership. In exchange for sanctuary, they were sharing technology that could transform the colony's future. But who had been shooting at them? And would those pursuers follow the trail to New Aberdeen? As if reading his thoughts, the alien father approached the window and stared out at the horizon. His posture was tense, alert, watching for something. "We need to talk to Director Walsh again," Marcus said. "And we need to do it fast. Because whatever had driven these aliens to seek human help was still out there somewhere." And Marcus had the sinking feeling that New Aberdeen was about to discover they weren't the only intelligent species in this part of the galaxy. The peaceful mining colony's days of isolation were numbered. Director Walsh stared at the energy crystal for the third time that morning, his coffee growing cold as Dr. Reeves explained the technical specifications. The alien family, who had begun calling themselves the Kethvar in their musical language, sat nearby, watching the human reactions with keen interest. "Let me understand this correctly," Walsh said slowly. "This single crystal could power our entire settlement for 6 months. And they're telling us there's an entire deposit of this material somewhere on our world." The alien father, who had somehow communicated his name as something like Theron, nodded and gestured toward the western mountains. He'd been trying to explain their situation for 2 days now, using a combination of gestures, crude drawings, and shared emotional expressions. Marcus had become the unofficial translator, picking up on the alien's body language better than anyone else. "Near as I can tell, their ship crashed in the mountains 3 weeks ago. They've been traveling on foot ever since, looking for help." "And the injuries?" "The ones that weren't from the cold." Theron's mate, who they'd started calling Lyra after she made a sound like that when pointing to herself, made a series of gestures that painted a grim picture. "Flying objects. Energy weapons. Pursuit." Their pup, barely more than a child, had been injured in the attack. "Someone shot down their ship," Marcus concluded. "They're not just refugees. They're survivors." Walsh set down his coffee and rubbed his temples. In 48 hours, his failing mining colony had become host to alien refugees, discovered a revolutionary energy source, and potentially put themselves in the crosshairs of whoever was hunting the Kethvar. "Sir," Sergeant Torres entered the meeting room, her expression tense. "We're picking up unusual readings from the perimeter sensors. Multiple contacts approaching from the northwest." The effect on the alien family was immediate. Theron shot to his feet, his fur bristling. Lyra pulled their pup closer, and all three began making low growling sounds that needed no translation. Fear. How many contacts? Walsh demanded. At least 6. Moving fast and low. They'll be here within the hour. Marcus looked at Theron, who was now pacing like a caged animal. I don't think they're here for a friendly visit. Walsh made his decision. General alarm. Get everyone to the emergency shelters. Torres, I want every weapon we have ready for deployment. Sir, our defensive capabilities are limited. We're a mining colony, not a military base. Then, we better hope diplomacy works. Walsh turned to the alien family. Can you tell us what we're facing? Theron approached the room's computer terminal. After a moment of studying the interface, he began pointing at various symbols and making gestures. Dr. Reeves pulled up a star chart and handed him a stylus. What the alien drew made everyone in the room go quiet. Ships. Lots of them. With weapons that could devastate a planet's surface. Slavers. Lyra spoke her first English word, heavily accented but unmistakable. She'd been learning from listening to their conversations. Slavers. Marcus repeated. Lyra nodded, then gestured to herself and her family. Take. Sell. Work. Die. The picture became horribly clear. The Kethvar weren't just refugees from war or natural disaster. They were escaped slaves, and their former masters had come to collect them. How long? Marcus asked Theron, gesturing to indicate time. The alien held up fingers. Not many. Sir, Torres' voice crackled over the comm. Contact in 30 minutes. Whatever we're going to do, we need to do it fast. Walsh looked around the room at his people, then at the alien family who had unknowingly brought danger to their door. He could order them to leave, throw them to the wolves to protect his own people. It would be the smart tactical decision. Instead, he thought about the energy crystal and what it represented. Not just power for their failing generators, but hope. A chance to build something better than the hand-to-mouth existence they'd been struggling with. Dr. Reeves, how quickly can we integrate that crystal into our power grid? I need at least a day to do it safely. You have 20 minutes. That's impossible. The power couplings alone. Then, we bypass the safety protocols. We need every advantage we can get. Walsh turned to Marcus. Sergeant Chun, I'm putting you in charge of defense coordination. Use whatever tactics you think will work. Marcus nodded grimly. What about them? He indicated the Kethvar family. They're under our protection now. If these slavers want them, they'll have to go through us first. Theron had been following the conversation with obvious understanding. He approached Walsh and spoke in careful English, words he'd clearly been practicing. Fight together? Kethvar fight too. The offer hung in the air. Accept. And they were committing to a battle against unknown aliens with superior technology. Refuse. And they were giving up their best source of intelligence about the enemy. Can you fight? Walsh asked directly. In response, Theron's claws extended from his fingertips. Each one was as long as a combat knife and gleamed with metallic sharpness. Lyra did the same, and even their pup displayed small but obviously deadly natural weapons. Fight, Theron confirmed. 23 minutes later, the first slaver ship appeared on the horizon. It was larger than anything in New Aberdeen's records, a sleek predator that moved with unnatural grace through the atmosphere. Energy readings spiked as it approached, and the colony's emergency sirens wailed across the settlement. Marcus stood in the colony's improvised command center, watching the approach on their limited sensors. Beside him, Theron provided a running commentary in broken English about the ship's capabilities. Hunter class. Fast. Heavy weapons. Shield strong. How many crew? 20. Maybe 30. Not good odds for a mining colony with mostly civilian defenders. Marcus activated his comm unit. All units, remember we're buying time. Hit and run tactics only. Do not try to stand and fight these things. Dr. Reeves' voice crackled through from the power station. Energy crystal is online. Power levels are. Marcus, we're running at 400% normal capacity. Our shields should be able to handle anything they throw at us. That was the first good news they'd had all day. The slaver ship settled into a hover pattern above the colony's main square. A mechanical voice boomed from external speakers, speaking in the same musical language as the Kethvar. Theron translated with obvious disgust. Surrender escaped property. No harm to colony. Refuse, and all die. Walsh grabbed the public address system. This is Director Walsh of New Aberdeen Colony. The individuals you're seeking are under our protection. You have no authority here. The response was immediate. A focused energy beam lanced down from the ship and struck the colony's main communications array. The tower vaporized in a flash of superheated metal and plastic. I think that's their answer, Marcus muttered. Lyra growled something urgent to her mate, who nodded and turned to Marcus. More ships coming. Many more. The sensor readings confirmed his words. 6 additional contacts, approaching fast from multiple directions. The colony was about to be surrounded. All units, prepare for siege conditions, Marcus announced. They want these people alive, so they won't just blow us up from orbit. That means ground assault, which gives us a chance. The first landing craft touched down outside the colony's perimeter. Through the security cameras, Marcus watched as figures emerged that made his blood run cold. They looked like the HFY, but wrong. Larger, more muscular, with cybernetic implants replacing parts of their bodies. Their fur was darker, almost black, and their eyes glowed with artificial enhancement. These weren't just slavers. They were the HFY's own people, modified and controlled. Enforcer class, Theron explained with hatred in his voice. HFY taken young. Changed. Made into soldiers. How do we fight them? Careful. Still think like HFY, but no mercy. No fear. The first assault came from 3 directions simultaneously. The enhanced HFY moved with inhuman speed, using natural agility combined with cybernetic enhancement to scale the colony's walls like they weren't there. Marcus coordinated the defense from the command center while Theron provided tactical advice. The alien's knowledge of his people's fighting methods proved invaluable. They're east wall. They come over, not through gate. Marcus redirected 2 squads to cover the predicted breach point. The colonists were mostly miners and engineers, not soldiers, but they knew their settlement better than any invader. The enhanced HFY reached the east wall and vaulted over with impossible grace. They landed in the colony square and immediately began methodically searching buildings, moving in perfect coordination. Thermal vision, Theron warned. Sea heat. Hide no good. That explained how they'd tracked the family across a frozen wilderness. Lyra spoke urgently to her mate, then approached Marcus. In her careful English, she said, I go. Stop fight. Save colony. No. Marcus turned to face her. We don't abandon people. That's not how humans work. She stared at him with those glowing eyes, and Marcus saw something like surprise there. Theron spoke rapidly to his mate in their own language, gesturing toward Marcus and the other humans. Lyra listened, then nodded slowly. Human custom strange, she said finally. But good strange. The first exchange of fire erupted near the generator building. Plasma bolts sizzled through the air, turning patches of snow to steam. The colonists' conventional weapons were barely scratching the enhanced HFY's armor, but the aliens' return fire was devastating. We need a new strategy, Marcus announced. Conventional weapons aren't working. Theron had been studying the colony's defensive systems. Power very strong now. Make weapons stronger. Dr. Reeves' voice crackled over the comm from the generator station. Actually, yes. The crystal's energy output is so high I could overcharge every weapon system we have. It would burn them out after a few shots, but the increased damage might be enough. Do it. All units, prepare for overcharged weapons. You'll get maybe 3 shots before they're scrap, so make them count. While Reeves worked her technical magic, Marcus watched the tactical situation deteriorate. The enhanced HFY were systematically clearing buildings, getting closer to the command center with each passing minute. Theron stood suddenly, his posture alert. Pack leader comes. What? Through the window, Marcus saw a figure approaching that dwarfed the other enhanced HFY. This one was nearly 9 feet tall, its body more machine than biological. Cybernetic limbs gleamed in the reflected light, and its eyes burned with artificial intelligence. Warlord, Theron whispered with obvious fear. Commands whole fleet. Very dangerous. The massive figure stopped in the center of the square and spoke in amplified voice that carried across the entire colony. Even without understanding the language, Marcus could hear the arrogance and cruelty in its tone. Lyra translated with a shaking voice. Give up now. Colony spared. Refuse. And all slaves forever. The threat was clear. This wasn't just about recovering 3 escaped slaves anymore. This was about adding an entire human colony to their inventory. Marcus looked at his people, miners and engineers and teachers who'd come to this world seeking a better life. They'd never signed up for a war against alien slavers. But they were here anyway, weapons in hand, ready to fight for their freedom. Tell him, Marcus said to Lyra, that humans don't make good slaves. The enhanced Kethvar scattered, realizing the danger, but their leader stood firm, confident in its armor and shields. Fire. 20 overcharged plasma bolts converged on the warlord. The alien's personal shields flared and failed under the concentrated assault. Armor plating cracked and melted. The massive figure staggered, but didn't fall. Again, the second volley finished the job. The warlord collapsed to its knees, then toppled face first into the snow. Dark blood pooled beneath the still form. The effect on the other enhanced Kethvar was immediate and unexpected. Instead of redoubling their assault, they stopped fighting entirely. Several actually dropped their weapons. Pack mentality, Theron explained with growing excitement. Leader dead. Pack confused. Not know what do. Marcus saw the opportunity. All units, advance on the square. Non-lethal force if possible. What followed was the strangest battle Marcus had ever seen. The enhanced Kethvar, their cybernetic controls apparently linked to their dead leader, were struggling with conflicting programming. Some continued fighting with mechanical precision. Others stood motionless, awaiting orders that would never come. A few actually seemed to be remembering who they'd been before their enslavement. Lyra ventured out of the command center against Marcus's protests. She approached the confused enhanced soldiers, speaking in rapid Kethvar. Whatever she was saying had an immediate effect. Several of the enhanced aliens lowered their weapons entirely. What is she doing? Marcus asked Theron. Reminding them. Before machines. Before slavery. Reminding them they are Kethvar. It was working. One by one, the enhanced soldiers stopped fighting. Some ripped cybernetic implants from their own bodies, choosing pain over mental slavery. Others simply sat down in the snow, overwhelmed by returning memories. But not all of them. A group of 6 enhanced Kethvar, their cybernetic modifications too extensive to overcome, continued their assault on the colony. These ones moved like pure machines, immune to Lyra's words, and focused only on their original mission. They breached the command center's defenses and poured inside, moving with deadly efficiency toward their targets. Marcus found himself face to face with one of the creatures, its artificial eyes glowing with cold intelligence. The enhanced alien was faster and stronger than any human could be. It had Marcus disarmed and pinned in seconds, claws positioned to deliver a killing blow. But Theron was faster. The unmodified Kethvar hit his enhanced cousin with the full force of his natural abilities. They rolled across the command center floor in a blur of fur and flashing claws, neither giving quarter. Marcus grabbed his fallen weapon and tried to get a clear shot, but the 2 aliens were moving too fast. All he could do was watch as Theron fought for the lives of his new human friends. The enhanced Kethvar's cybernetic advantages were offset by Theron's natural agility and desperate determination. When the fight ended, both aliens lay motionless on the floor. Theron, Marcus rolled the unmodified alien over, fearing the worst. Slowly, Theron's eyes opened. He was battered and bleeding, but alive. The enhanced soldier would never threaten anyone again. Humans safe? Theron asked weakly. We're all safe, thanks to you. Outside, the battle was ending. The slaver ships, their ground forces neutralized and their commander dead, were withdrawing. Lyra had managed to reach several more enhanced Kethvar, breaking their conditioning and reminding them of their true nature. Dr. Reeves arrived with medical supplies, examining both humans and aliens with equal care. The power crystal worked perfectly, she reported. Our weapon systems are fried, but the colony's main power is still running at incredible efficiency. Director Walsh surveyed the aftermath with something like amazement. Casualty report: 7 injured colonists, none critical. Theron has some serious lacerations, but should recover. And we've got 12 liberated Kethvar who are going to need help adjusting to freedom. It was better than Marcus had dared hope. They'd not only survived the encounter but had actually dealt a significant blow to the slaver operation. Theron struggled to his feet, supported by his mate and pup. Despite his injuries, he approached Director Walsh with dignity. "Debt to humans," he said carefully. "Always debt. How repay?" Walsh looked at the energy crystal, then at the liberated Kethvar milling around the colony square, then at the family that had started it all. "I think we can work something out." That evening, as New Aberdeen's residents treated their wounds and began cleaning up battle damage, an unprecedented meeting took place in the colony's main hall. Humans and Kethvar sat together, working out the details of what might be history's first true interspecies partnership. "The energy crystals were just the beginning," Lyra explained. "The Kethvar possessed knowledge of agriculture, medicine, and engineering that could transform human colonies throughout the galaxy. In exchange, humans offered something the Kethvar had almost forgotten existed: freedom, the right to choose their own destiny without fear of slavery or oppression." Marcus watched the negotiations with satisfaction. New Aberdeen had started as a failing mining colony on the edge of human space. Tonight, it was becoming something else entirely. A beacon of hope for two species learning to trust each other. But, as he looked up at the star-filled sky, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that their troubles were far from over. They'd won one battle against the slavers, but the war for freedom was just beginning. The galaxy was a big place, and it was full of dangers that neither species could face alone. Good thing they wouldn't have to. 6 months after the battle at New Aberdeen, the colony was unrecognizable. Where once ramshackle prefab buildings had housed desperate miners, now gleaming structures rose toward the sky, powered by Kethvar crystal technology and built with a fusion of human engineering and alien artistry. Marcus stood on the observation deck of the new communications array, watching mixed crews of humans and Kethvar work together on the latest construction project. The sight still amazed him. Two species that had never known of each other's existence, now building a future together. "The reinforcements from Earth arrive tomorrow," Director Walsh said, joining Marcus at the window. "Admiral Morrison wants a full briefing on everything that's happened here." Marcus nodded without enthusiasm. The arrival of the Terran Defense Corps fleet was necessary, but he worried about how Earth Command would react to their alliance with the Kethvar. Not everyone in the human hierarchy appreciated independent thinking from colonial administrators. "How's Theron handling the news?" "About as well as you'd expect. He's convinced Earth wants to turn his people into weapons." It wasn't an unreasonable fear. In the months since first contact, they'd learned more about Kethvar capabilities that went far beyond their natural claws and agility. Their crystalline technology could revolutionize everything from starship drives to planetary defense systems. Some humans would inevitably see them as resources to be exploited rather than allies to be respected. Lyra approached them across the deck, moving with the fluid grace that all Kethvar possessed. She'd become the unofficial ambassador for her people, learning human languages and customs with remarkable speed. "Marcus, Theron requests meeting. Important news from deep space." That didn't sound good. Marcus followed Lyra through the colony's corridors to what had become known as the Alliance Center, a building designed by both species working together, incorporating the best of human practicality and Kethvar aesthetics. Inside, Theron waited with several other Kethvar, including 2 of the liberated former slaves who had become valuable intelligence sources. The main display showed a 3-dimensional star map with multiple red indicators scattered across local space. "Slaver fleets moving," Theron explained without preamble. "Many ships. Coming here." Marcus studied the tactical display with growing unease. The red indicators represented confirmed slaver forces, and there were far more of them than he'd expected. How many ships total? 50, maybe more. They gather fleet for big assault. Director Walsh, who had followed them down, whistled softly. "That's 3 times the size of the force we're expecting from Earth." "Gets worse," said Kavek, one of the liberated Kethvar. His English was heavily accented, but understandable. "Slavers make alliance too, with others who hate free peoples." The display shifted, showing new intelligence that made Marcus's heart sink. The slaver fleets weren't acting alone. They'd formed an alliance with other hostile species, pirates, raiders, and worse. They fear what we build here, Lyra said quietly. Human-Kethvar friendship dangerous to those who profit from slavery and oppression. Marcus understood the implications immediately. New Aberdeen had become more than just a successful colony. It had become a symbol, proof that different species could work together as equals, that freedom was possible even in the darkest corners of the galaxy. That made it a target for everyone who preferred the old ways of exploitation and domination. When will they arrive? 2 weeks, Theron replied. Maybe less. Walsh activated his communicator. I need to contact Admiral Morrison immediately. This changes everything. But Marcus was thinking beyond the immediate tactical problem. An idea was forming, dangerous, but potentially game-changing. Lyra, how many Kethvar settlements are under slaver control? Many. Hundreds. Across dozens of star systems. And how many other species are being enslaved? Unknown. But signs indicate many different peoples. Slavers not particular about source of slaves. Marcus turned to Director Walsh. We need to expand the scope of this operation. What do you mean? I mean we don't just defend New Aberdeen. We use it as a rallying point. Every enslaved species, every oppressed people, every group that wants freedom, we bring them together. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed the audacity of what Marcus was proposing. You're talking about starting a galactic rebellion, Walsh said slowly. I'm talking about finishing one that already started the day Theron and his family walked out of those woods asking for help. Theron studied Marcus with those glowing eyes, then spoke carefully. Human military not like such plan. Earth Command prefers control to chaos. Probably not. But Admiral Morrison is an Earth Command. She's Terran Defense Corps, and her job is protecting human colonies. If I can convince her that the best defense is helping others fight for their freedom. It's insane, Walsh muttered. But there was something in his voice that suggested he was considering it anyway. Lyra stepped forward. Kethvar have ways to reach enslaved peoples. Hidden communication networks. Old rebel cells that never fully died. And you think they'd respond to a call for unified resistance? If they believe they have chance to win. She looked directly at Marcus. If they see humans willing to fight beside them as equals. Marcus made his decision. Then, that's what we show them. The next 24 hours passed in a whirlwind of activity. Using Kethvar communication networks that operated on frequencies unknown to the slavers, they began sending a message across local space. The content was simple but revolutionary. All peoples deserve freedom. All species deserve dignity. Join us, and we'll fight together for a galaxy where no one lives in chains. The responses came faster than anyone had expected. First was a group of crystalline beings from the Andorian Reach, whose homeworld had been strip-mined by slaver corporations. Then came reptilian refugees from the Vega system, survivors of a genocide that had claimed 90% of their species. Hour by hour, the list grew. Humans weren't the only species capable of stubborn determination, it seemed. When Admiral Morrison's fleet arrived the next day, they found New Aberdeen buzzing with activity that went far beyond colonial development. Ships from a dozen species filled the orbital space around Kepler 442b, their crews working together on projects that would have been impossible for any single race to accomplish. Admiral Sarah Morrison was a career military officer with 30 years of experience protecting humanity's interests among the stars. She was also pragmatic enough to recognize opportunity when she saw it. Marcus met her personally at the spaceport, along with Theron and representatives from several other species. The Admiral's reaction to seeing actual aliens working alongside humans was carefully controlled, but Marcus caught glimpses of amazement in her eyes. Sergeant Shun, she said formally, I understand congratulations are in order. Your actions here have prevented a significant loss of human life. Thank you, Admiral. But I think the real congratulations belong to all of us working together. Morrison studied the mixed crowd around them, humans and Kethvar and others, all collaborating on various projects with obvious mutual respect. I've read the reports, but seeing it is something else entirely. How stable is this alliance? Theron stepped forward before Marcus could answer. Humans save Kethvar family. Kethvar help human colony. Now both peoples stronger together than alone. The Admiral nodded slowly. And the others? The non-human, non-Kethvar species? Same story repeated, Marcus replied. Everyone here has been a victim of the slaver networks. Everyone here has something to contribute to the solution. Morrison was quiet for a moment, processing everything she was seeing. Finally, she spoke with characteristic directness. Earth Command is concerned about unauthorized alliances with alien species. They sent me here to evaluate whether this situation represents an opportunity or a threat. And what's your assessment, Admiral? Morrison looked around at the bustling activity, the obvious cooperation, the sense of purpose that permeated everything. I think Earth Command is asking the wrong question. This isn't about whether we can trust these aliens. It's about whether we can afford not to work with them. That evening, the Alliance Center hosted the largest gathering in New Aberdeen's history. Representatives from 14 different species sat around tables designed to accommodate widely varying anatomies, working out the details of what they were calling the Free People's Alliance. Admiral Morrison addressed the assembly, her words broadcast simultaneously in multiple languages and communication methods. 6 months ago, this world was a failing mining colony on the edge of human space. Today, it's the capital of something unprecedented in galactic history, a true partnership between equals, united not by conquest or coercion, but by shared values of freedom and mutual respect. The translation systems carried her words to beings who communicated through color changes, subsonic vibrations, and electromagnetic pulses. But the meaning transcended language barriers. The slaver fleets approaching this system see us as a threat to their business model. They're right. We intend to put them out of business permanently. Marcus watched the faces and equivalent expressions around the room. These beings had every reason to be cynical about promises of freedom. They'd all seen their worlds conquered, their peoples enslaved, their cultures nearly destroyed. But something in Admiral Morrison's voice, in the concrete reality of what New Aberdeen had become, was giving them hope. I want to be clear about what we're proposing, Morrison continued. This won't be easy. The slavers have fleets, weapons, established supply lines. They have the advantage of numbers and experience. She paused, letting that sink in. But they don't have what we have. They don't have species working together by choice instead of force. They don't have the innovations that come from combining different types of intelligence and creativity. And they don't have the most powerful force in the galaxy, people fighting for their own freedom. The alien equivalent of applause filled the chamber. Marcus felt a chill of excitement run down his spine. This was really happening. Theron stood to address the assembly. Kethvar knows slavers better than anyone. Know their tactics, their weaknesses, their fears. Greatest fear is unity among slaves. Today, fear becomes reality. Over the following days, the details of the alliance took shape. Each species would contribute according to their abilities. The crystalline beings brought shield technology that could protect entire fleets. The reptilian survivors offered knowledge of bioweapons and medical techniques. Human industry and determination provided the backbone for large-scale military operations. But it was the Kethvar who provided the key to everything. Detailed intelligence on slaver operations throughout local space, gathered by their underground networks over generations of resistance. The plan that emerged was audacious beyond anything Marcus had imagined. Instead of waiting for the slaver fleets to attack New Aberdeen, the Alliance would strike first. Coordinated assaults on slaver bases across 12 systems, timed to coincide with uprisings on slave worlds throughout the region. We're not just defending one colony, Admiral Morrison explained to her staff officers. We're liberating an entire sector of space. The objections came immediately, as expected. The plan was too ambitious. The risks were too high. Earth Command would never approve such extensive operations. Earth Command isn't here, Morrison replied firmly. I am. And my job is to protect human interests. Right now, humanity's interests align perfectly with the cause of galactic freedom. Marcus found himself promoted to colonel and placed in command of joint operations planning. It was surreal, coordinating military strategy with beings who had evolved on dozens of different worlds under alien suns. But it worked. The diversity of perspectives led to tactical innovations that no single species could have developed. Human strategic thinking combined with Kethvar stealth capabilities and crystalline shield technology created possibilities that changed the entire strategic landscape. 3 days before the slaver fleets were scheduled to arrive at New Aberdeen, the Free People's Alliance launched Operation Liberation. 70 ships from 14 species jumped simultaneously to targets across local space. The slavers, expecting a simple punitive expedition against one rebellious colony, suddenly found themselves fighting a coordinated rebellion on multiple fronts. Marcus commanded the assault on the main slaver base in the Proxima system, leading a mixed force of human destroyers and HFY stealth ships. The base's defenders, caught completely off guard, surrendered after a brief engagement. More importantly, the attack freed over 10,000 slaves from various species, all of whom immediately volunteered for the Alliance forces. The pattern repeated across all 12 target systems. The slavers' advantage in numbers evaporated as their own victims turned against them. Their supply lines collapsed as bases fell to Alliance forces. Their fleet coordination broke down as communication networks were overrun by rebel forces. In less than a week, centuries of slaver domination in the local sector came to an end. But the real victory came when the slaver fleet finally reached New Aberdeen, expecting to find a defenseless colony ripe for plunder. Instead, they found the combined forces of the Free People's Alliance waiting for them. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the slaver fleet no longer existed as an organized force. Those ships that weren't destroyed surrendered, their crews facing trial for crimes against sapient life. Marcus stood once again on the observation deck of New Aberdeen's communications array, but now he was looking out at a transformed galaxy. The colony below bustled with activity as beings from across local space worked together to build something unprecedented. Admiral Morrison joined him, as had become their custom during quiet moments. Earth Command finally responded to our reports, she said. They're sending a diplomatic mission to negotiate formal treaties with the Alliance. About time. What's their position? Officially, they're concerned about unauthorized commitments and the precedent this sets for colonial independence. And unofficially? Morrison smiled. Unofficially, they're impressed as hell and want to know how we pulled it off. Marcus chuckled. I'm not sure we did pull it off. Sometimes I think it pulled itself off, and we just held on for the ride. Through the window, they could see Theron teaching a group of human children how to identify edible plants using HFY techniques. Nearby, Dr. Reeves worked with crystalline engineers to develop new medical technologies. In the distance, construction continued on what would become the Alliance Academy, a place where young beings from across the galaxy could learn to work together. You know what I think the real achievement is? Morrison mused. What's that? It's not that we defeated the slavers. It's not even that we created this alliance. It's that we proved something that a lot of people in the galaxy had stopped believing, which is, Admiral Morrison looked out at the bustling community below, at the ships from a dozen worlds sharing the same orbital space, at the children of different species playing together in the colony's parks. We proved that different doesn't have to mean enemy. That cooperation is stronger than conquest. That freedom really is worth fighting for, no matter what planet you come from or what you look like. Marcus nodded, thinking back to that frozen night when 3 desperate aliens had emerged from a blizzard asking for help. It seemed impossible that such a small moment had led to such enormous changes. But maybe that was the point. Maybe the biggest revolutions always started with simple acts of compassion. Maybe the future of the galaxy had always depended on people, human or otherwise, who were willing to help a stranger in need. Outside, the sun was setting over New Aberdeen, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new species seeking to join the Alliance. But tonight, the galaxy was a little bit freer than it had been yesterday. And that, Marcus decided, was enough to build on. The radio crackled with a message from one of the outlying systems. Another group of refugees, another species fleeing oppression, another chance to prove that freedom was stronger than fear. Marcus smiled and headed for the communications center. There was work to do. After all, the galaxy was a big place, and there were still a lot of people out there who needed to learn what humans had discovered that frozen night on New Aberdeen. That sometimes, the best way to help yourself is to help someone else first. The Alliance was just getting started.